Well, good afternoon, and another episode of Ask Mike, and we're going to continue to talk about schools today. As you recall, the last episode we had a discussion with the superintendent of schools and the school's business manager to talk about budgets and how that works and how the 2/3 or so of what the city has to spend goes to schools and where that's spent and how it doesn't quite fill the gap. And so today we're going to talk about something that should be on everyone's mind, and it's the override question that's going to be on the ballot in November. It's question 4. And with me today we have representatives from Committee for Stronger Schools, and we have the chairman of the school committee to talk a little bit about the budget. I guess maybe a little bit of background for those of you that aren't real familiar with overrides and the like. But this is an opportunity for the voters to decide whether or not they would voluntarily add to the taxes about $1,000 per year on your home. And that money would go directly to support expanded education opportunities here in East Hampton. And so that's kind of what the program's all about today. To do a little introduction to the people that are involved in the override and the chairman of the school committee, and also to talk about what that money might be used for. So Peter, let's start with you. You're the chairman of the school committee, and we all know that the school committee really does control what funding is available to them, but can't add to that funding. So why do we need to go looking for some additional money?
Well, Mike, first of all, thanks for the opportunity, and I think the most important thing for folks in town to understand about this is that East Hampton has good schools, and in many ways we do great things in those good schools. The challenge that we face right now is that the gradual but clearly felt impact of persistent gaps in the budget has meant that we have had to cut back on some of the successful programs that we had and really run as close to the bone as we can on some others. So this proposal, this override measure, would allow us to do two important things. First, it would allow us to restore some funding for some of the positions and some of the programs that we've had to trim back. And secondly, it would allow us to invest in new ones that are vital in this changed landscape of public education. Public education today is different than when you went to public school or when I went to public school. As a public school graduate, as a parent of children in the East Hampton Public Schools, as the spouse of a public school teacher who did a lot of her training as a paraprofessional here in East Hampton, I have a deep affection for what public schools can do for the children that attend them and for the community that supports them. And my sense, and I believe this is widely shared on the school committee and certainly on the Committee for Stronger Schools, is that the way we support the schools reflects how we as a community envision ourselves today and in the future. There's a lot more specifics, but I think the basic essence of this proposal is to restore key programs that we've had to trim and to invest in areas that we know will allow us to continue to provide high-quality 21st century education for our kids and our community going forward.
So you call that an investment. I'm curious, what do we get for the investment?
Well, we get, for example, the opportunity to expand language programs in the school system. One of the skills that is vital for young people to be career and college ready is their ability to communicate and to understand in more than one language, more than one cultural framework. We have a terrific language program at the high school. We have had a basic program in the middle school, and we don't have one in the elementary school. Part of what a specific investment that we would make here is to restore the world language program at the middle school and introduce a language program in the elementary school level. Most educators will tell you that the best place and the best time for young people to learn a language is actually in the elementary grades and even in the pre-elementary grades. Mm-hmm. So that's one example of how the funding that would come through this program would benefit us both today and going forward. A second major investment is changing the way we approach the funding of technology. And rather than moving on a case-by-case sort of example of this kind of technology we may think is appropriate right now and trying to work it into budgets, this proposal would allow us to create a perpetual rolling technology fund within the school budget, which is really something that we should have had sooner than this, and something that we'll work to have regardless, but something that will receive a vital infusion of funds. And that means that we will be able to provide the teachers with the technology that allows them to engage in the best practice. Just like when you take your child to a physician or to the dentist, you hope that that child will receive care that is aided by the best that science tells us about how to provide for the health of a child. We want to be able to provide the same sort of tools for the teachers in East Hampton so that they can provide best practice. So those are two specific ways that we'll work on it.
And it certainly seems like the schools have done wonderful with what's been available to them and could do a lot more with a bit more funds. So what's the Committee for Stronger Schools, and how are you involved in this effort to benefit the children here in the East Hampton school system?
I'm a volunteer coordinator on the Committee for Stronger Schools, and I'm a parent in town. I've been involved in the schools since even before my child was in school. I helped out with to get the high school built. I was on the education subcommittee for the master plan committee, and I've been on my Maple School council since the beginning. And so I've been hearing about the gaps, and are we going to have level funding this year and whatnot. And so when I started hearing about some organizing about getting a possible override passed, it was a no-brainer to me that I needed to get behind this, because public education in my town means a lot to me, means a lot to my family, and I really want to do what I can to make sure that the override passes. And so looking to get some help in spreading the word. Sure. and getting that yes vote.
Excellent.
Yeah, and similarly, I just recently moved here, actually within the last year. So I'm a new transplant to East Hampton, very excited to be here. My son just started in Maple School this fall. And he, moving into this area, I heard a lot about the schools. You always ask that when you're moving into a new town. And so what I heard here, though, was that great teachers, amazing heart, but not enough resources. And so as a new parent, when I heard about this opportunity that the school committee was looking for an override to look for more funding into the schools, I knew this was an opportunity for me to get involved, that I wanted to help, do everything I could to help my son, but also all the kids of East Hampton have better education for the 21st century.
Now, this is a $1.4 million request to the voters, and it would add, as we understand, about $1 to the tax rate. And we're asking the voters, by the way, I'm supportive of the override. I intend to vote for it. I did vote for it. It was a unanimous vote, I think, of the school committee to put it forward. The city council agreed. And so the question is on the ballot, number 4 on the ballot. So how can we connect better with the committee? How do we get involved as citizens in the community to talk about this to our neighbors? Can you give us any idea?
Yeah.
Sure. A number of ways. First of all, we do have a website, Committee for Stronger Schools, East Hampton. We're constantly updating that and adding stuff to it, whether it be new testimonials from other families in the town, ways to get involved, numbers to call. We also have a Facebook page, so like us on Facebook, and the same thing goes for our Facebook page. We're trying to keep current on what's happening. I think the latest posting was vote yes on question 4, in fact. But other than the computer, there are some physical things to do. Next Tuesday, we're having a kickoff rally at the Rotary. We're inviting the press, and we invite the whole town, children and everybody, to come out and make this as big of an event as possible so that more people in the town know what's happening. Then we were going to follow that up with a public forum at 50 Payson Avenue. I'm kind of seeing it as a panel, sort of like this, where the general public can ask questions and get answers from certainly Peter, but hopefully the superintendent, maybe some teachers and other parents, really get the chance to ask some of those questions that are in people's minds. And then we're going to follow that up with a fundraising event on Friday, October 4th at the Pulaski Club. We've got an event going on called Parents Night Out for the kids, and it'll be at 7 o'clock. Tickets are available through our website. And then we're going to follow that up with another rally the very next day, Saturday, October 5th, at the Rotary. So as these next few weeks go by, we're going to be doing more and more. We envision there being more signs out in people's lawns, envision more stuff in the paper, so that everybody is as informed as possible so that they can join me in voting yes on question 4 in November.
That's great.
Just to clarify, I want to be sure we've got the dates right.
Oh,
I think
yes.
we're Friday the 5th and Saturday the 6th.
Yes, thank
Right.
you.
But I understand starting with 4, because 4 is the number, right?
Right, I know.
Yes, on
It's on my
4 plus on
mind.
4, so it's a perfectly understandable
Thanks,
emphasis on
Peter.
that.
Good catch.
And I think also throughout this whole time, too, we're going to be, I think the public forum at 50 Payson on the 2nd is going to be really important because it gives the opportunity for everybody to come out and ask those questions. People who are uncertain, people who are undecided on this issue. It's a great, quiet place for people to come out and ask those questions and sort of get their opportunity to be heard. But also then throughout the next 6 weeks, we're going to be out there in the public at Big E's tabling. We'll be at the soccer fields. We'll be at the Rotary. And we'll just be out there really trying to get people to know about this issue so that on November 6th they can vote because they're informed to vote on this issue and want to make a proactive choice to support our schools and vote yes on question 4.
Yeah, and I think that it is most important for people to become educated, to understand what the needs are, and to understand how we can help by providing a little bit of extra funding. And I know maybe a dollar, $1,000 is difficult. If you have a $250,000 home, that's an additional $250, which is what, about 70 cents a day. Not outrageous, but some folks may feel a bit of a pinch. But it's good to understand, because the more you understand about the needs and the more that we can talk about that, I think the more people can become educated. Being the mayor, I have the advantage of understanding where the money comes from and where it goes, and maybe I won't go into the walk about all of that, but maybe people need to understand more about why this additional $1.4 million is necessary, and they could have a chance to ask direct questions to people that are involved. So I really want to thank you for coming out today. It really is important that we get the message out in any way we can. Peter, you had talked about trying to advance world languages and provide better technology, but there's also the opportunity here to keep more teachers in the classroom as well. That's a part of what this might fund.
Right, absolutely. Over the course of the last 5 years, a score plus of great educators in the community have had to leave our schools simply because of the gap. Even though the funding level increases, the costs of maintaining quality education increase at a greater rate. And one of our goals is to remain an attractive place, but when we bring people in and help them become good educators, is to not have, for budgetary reasons, them depart to neighboring school districts in the valley. In fact, in many ways, that's a double negative for us, because not only do we lose, but when a great teacher goes somewhere else, they can draw people in this new changed landscape of public education. People have choice, and regardless of your politics about the issue of choice, if those are the rules of the game, I think it's incumbent upon us in East Hampton to say that we're ready to step up and show that we want to be a kind of school where more and more people in East Hampton choose to educate their children here. And I think at the end of the time that a student has in school, more than anything else, what they will remember, what they will recall fondly, are teachers and the impact that those teachers had on them. And it's great for them, literally, to still be in the school district on the day that child graduates, because then that graduate carries that reflection and that experience forward as an adult, and after they've established themselves with a home and a job, East Hampton becomes an attractive place, and they think about wanting their own children to have that same kind of experience. So I think you're right. The biggest piece, and I appreciate your drawing attention to it, is the ability to hold on to great teachers, to continue to grow great teachers. The fourth way that I'm involved in the public school system is as an educator myself. I've had the great good fortune to work with people in the history department at the high school quite closely, and it is one of the many ways that our high school program shines, is with the outstanding teachers that we have in that program. And I've seen up close and personal the kind of impact that they have on the lives of the children who are in their classes. And so far we've been fortunate to hold on to that great core of people, passing this budget override will assure our ability to continue to hold on to great teachers like that going forward.
Yeah,
If I-
and certainly.
If I could add just to what Peter was saying about, that the kids might end up staying here. In fact, after one of the city council meetings that I was speaking at, that was my thought too. If the town, I see this as an investment for the town, not investment, obviously investment in education, but for the town. We're putting money into our schools, which is putting money into our children, and then our children are more likely to stay here or to return here and then to add back to the town. And so it's a never-ending circle. And so as a taxpayer and a homeowner, that's how we're looking at it. Our house is we're investing in this town by paying more taxes, and therefore our schools are better.
And one of the things on our website, there's some studies that have come out that directly looked at this issue. There's a study that directly says if you invest money into your school district, that money directly helps build the economy of your town. And so it's roughly in that estimate of $1 that you put into the schools develops a $420 into the local economy. And so please look at our website. That's Community for Stronger Schools, easthampton.org. And right there we've got this study that was done. And a lot of different things are going on around this country which really sort of recognize this equation of strong schools and strong town, strong economy. And so that's what we're wanting to support.
And to just pick up on that, there are two ways, if I could sort of speak to the community of people who are concerned, particularly folks who perhaps no longer have children in the schools, perhaps folks who are on fixed incomes, about the challenge here. When graduates of our school system elect to come back, they have to live somewhere. So they add to the demand for housing stock. And that has two effects. You either see new houses being constructed, which is great for jobs and for the local economy, or you see the value of the existing home stock go up. So that's one way that it's a positive investment. I also believe, as sort of an amateur economist, that one of the greatest sources of security for Social Security going forward is having an able and well-prepared workforce. And one of the ways that you provide that is through the educational experience of young people so that they are career ready, either at the end of their high school experience or by going on to college. So there are two benefits for some of the folks who I think are probably the most challenged by this question in terms of the way that this investment will come back to them, in addition to the way we've talked about it as an investment directly in the schools.
And clearly we only have one opportunity to educate children. They only have one opportunity to go through the 12 grades that are provided locally, and we need to do it right the first time. And so it's a very important question. Question 4 on the November ballot, it talks about providing additional funding to help bridge the gap that exists in the budgeting for our school systems, to provide more educators, to provide more support in the classrooms, to provide the materials that the children need, to provide good technology, and to make sure that East Hampton schools continue to excel. So it's up to the voters at this point, but we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to have a conversation, to understand the website, to know that there are opportunities out there to become educated, and certainly those of us that are sitting here and coming into your living room today wish that you vote yes on question 4.
Well, there's one thing to pick up off of what you just said, which, is a way of illustrating it. During a downturn, you can postpone the purchase of an automobile. You can stretch your car for one more year. It's difficult to redo 3rd grade. You only get one shot at 3rd grade. You only get one shot at 5th grade. Sure, it's tough to drive your used car in its 7th year when you'd really like to be upgrading and getting something new, but that doesn't seem to me to bring down the quality of life in the same way that having your class size grow, or having the absence of a language program, or the enrichment programs. One of the really important things that we've seen that is helping to confirm the strong reputation that East Hampton has for excellence in education are the enrichment programs, the Kaleidoscope program, the Pathways program, the AP programs at the high school, which have grown significantly, and the latest data showed how our students perform at a rate that is almost twice as high as the median rate in the Commonwealth as a whole, but that was initiated with grant funding. And we took that opportunity to initiate that program. If we want to continue that program, we now need to translate much of that funding into our own operating budget. So there's a program that we know works, we know that East Hampton students have succeeded in, and we know makes a difference for them in the elementary, middle, and high school level, that is going to require more funding going forward from the community in order to keep it. So I think that's another argument in favor of spending this money now so that we can assure quality education going forward. When the school committee was presented with, when we began the budget-making process for the previous cycle, having served on the school committee this was the 5th budget cycle that I was a part of, I reached a point of belief that we could no longer not turn to the community and say, here's what the resources in the city allow the mayor to do, here's what the superintendent and our educators say we need to do, and that gap sat there. So my initial response in voting for a full budget was that we would then turn and ask the voters to make up that difference. In the subsequent conversation, we realized that it was vital to put this budget vote in the context of the broader strategic vision that we have for the East Hampton schools, and that was when we engaged in the discussion about the investment component. So there are two pieces to this. One part is to address the budget gap that we currently face and some of the cuts that have resulted from the gap, but another part is to invest so that as we become, and I guess this is a third way where the investment pays off, if we're successful, as I think we will continue to be, then more and more people choose to stay here, and that becomes a source of de facto revenue for the school system because it's money that never leaves. And that's a little bit hard to understand at first glance, but if you can stop outflow of money, that's as good as an inflow of money.
And there is approximately the same amount of money going out in charter and choice as we're asking for the voters to put back into the school system. And so in the future, this investment likely will lead to lesser pressure on the budget as the outside world, the folks outside of East Hampton see the value, and the folks in East Hampton who are currently sending their children to other school systems see the value of leaving the children here. That money that automatically flows out of the community will stay here. And the way that we structure budgets, that money will actually stay here and in the school's operating budget. So this really provides not only the influx that we need now, but it seems to me that it also provides the buffer that we need in the future to be able to make the school system excel, allow the school system to excel and to become attractive to all of the users, not only the choice users that elect to come to East Hampton from their home communities, and we have 60 or 70 children that are doing that now, but also the children in East Hampton, the families in East Hampton that choose to send their children elsewhere will look at the system in a very different way. Yeah. We certainly are never going to stop people from choosing to go to a school because they like the sports team or they like the buildings, but for educational purposes, there really is no better system than East Hampton.
Right. And we want to make that choice a genuinely difficult choice for people in East Hampton. And our primary focus in that specific area is to retain the young people in East Hampton who, quite frankly, I think don't know what they're missing. And if this discussion helps encourage families to take a second look, or maybe a first thorough look at what we have on offer, I think they are going to find in the elementary, middle, and high school level terrific opportunities. And this, voting yes on 4 and making this investment will assure us of being able to continue to offer and grow the successful programs that make that true.
And I just want to add that another argument that I've been hearing, or point that I've been hearing, is so we were successful in getting a new high school building. It's going to be open in the spring. However, due to the budget gap right now, we're kind of at risk for what goes on inside that building. And so one of the points that I've tried to make to some folks is we've got a great shiny new building, but with this vote we can ensure that some good quality stuff happens inside it, because buildings don't teach, teachers do.
And maybe one last thing I would also throw out there is that as we're talking about educating people in this community, we also need people to come out. We need people to get involved. We need people to volunteer their time, to take an hour to volunteer and come to the Rotary. And when we're doing rallies there, we need to have you to volunteer to take time at the soccer fields and at the Big E. Sort of, if you feel like this story here we've told today, or the just sort of overall you know enough that you want to get involved and you want to help spread that message to educate the people of East Hampton, we need you to get involved. We need you to volunteer your time. We need you to sign up on the website to come out and help us out and spread this word even further. So we need people to volunteer and help get the message out there. So not just voting yes on question 4 in November, but also getting ready today, helping us make sure that more and more people in East Hampton know about this issue and how to make an educated choice in November.
Very good.
Great. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us again for Ask Mike. I think today's show was really good, and you're going to have a great time going to vote in favor of question 4. Remember that if you have any questions at all that you'd like us to use as topics on the show, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at askmike@ecatchannel5.org, or you can email me directly at work, mike.t@easthampton.org. Have a great day.